Yo, what up, everyone? This is Terry with College Football Stop, bringing you another show today, November 16th, 2023. Uh, Super excited about this college football season, man. Like I said before, obviously it's coming down to an end. It's coming really fast, but obviously we got the climax at the end with the game and championship weekend, all that good stuff. So I'm excited about that, man. But it's happening too fast. It feels like just a couple weeks ago was the off season, and we were saying we couldn't wait till college football gets here. But hey, man, we're winding down to the end. Um, it should be a super exciting finish to the season. So I want to get into a couple things today. The coaches met with the media. They actually let Parker Fleming meet with the media, which I'm really surprised. Usually, when a specific unit or player coach is not performing well, which I think the overall consensus is that the special teams has not been performing well. But usually, when a situation like that arises, those guys are not being brought out to speak to the media. But Ryan Day did that with Parker Fleming, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then Hartline and Ryan Day both met with the media also, so they had a couple things to say. I want to get into that, and then I want to talk about this Ohio State offense. Obviously, just a short run through. The offense has struggled all year. It hasn't been like your typical Ohio State Ryan Day offense, but the last game that they played against Michigan State looked really good. Um, Obviously, a lot of that has to do with the quarterback play, but I think there was a lot of other things going into it besides just quarterback play that was making this offense not be up to par. And I'm going to get into that because I think that Ohio State could potentially, at the end of this year, have one of the best offenses in the country. The stats are not going to reflect that, but if you could put up points against good defenses, that's what matters most. And I think they're going to be able to. But we'll get into that a little bit later in the show here. I want to start with the coaches. Like I said, just a couple things. It's not anything super interesting. But at this time of the year, I like to watch these interviews and kind of just feel out where the coaches are at in their head. Like do they look super timid? Are they super relaxed? Do they look like they're confident in what's coming? Just stuff like that, right? So first thing, obviously Parker Fleming, they brought him out, and obviously the media really actually did a good job of asking him questions about like specific plays that happened, about like kind of like the mistakes and how those need to be fixed. Now, he did not give any insight on what he was doing or what he was planning on doing in terms of fixing some of the mistakes. But Parker Fleming, to me, is just someone who seems super accountable. And I think that's kind of what Ryan Day said about him, too. He was like, look, obviously on this play that you're talking about, the job did not get done. And that's our job to make sure that that gets done. He's like, we kind of tell our players, obviously, if a good play is made, that's because they are a good player. If something bad happens, typically that's because we didn't coach it properly. Um, he's kind of mirroring a lot of the stuff that Jim Knowles and Ryan Day says. But I think that he did want to point out that there has been some good plays from the special teams, which I think is true. I think that as a fan, as someone who talks about the team, it's easy for us to get caught up in like every single day, every single game. There's a bad play from the special teams. There's also typically a couple really good plays. There's also typically some plays where the punter will pin the other team inside like the 10-yard line and set the defense up, which pinning someone inside the 10-yard line is like debilitating when they're going against this Ohio State defense. And one game specifically, Ohio State had a turnover on special teams in the Penn State game. Right? They were punting the ball. I'm sorry, they were receiving the ball, and it bounced off of one of the players. I think it was Lorenzo Styles. If I'm remembering that right, that's what happened. In that same game, also, the Ohio State special teams pinned Penn State inside their own 10-yard line. I think like maybe 3 times. That type of stuff can't go unnoticed. I understand that it's frustrating when the special teams has issues. It's frustrating when they try to do a block punt and it just doesn't work the way that you expect it to. Ends up being a net negative play when in reality it probably should have been like a game changing first down. That stuff has to get fixed. And I mean, again, he didn't talk too much about how he was planning on fixing it, but hopefully he will, because I do see some of the good from the special teams also. Even like if I'm talking about like good things, if you look back at the last game against Michigan State, Jaden Ballard was one. I don't know if it was one cut or one, um, maybe a little bit more speed. I wouldn't think that because he's one of the fastest guys on the team. Anyway, he was basically like an inch away from housing a punt return, which is something we haven't seen all year. We haven't seen in multiple years. So again, we have to take the good with the bad. Hopefully, the special teams unit will continue playing better, because ultimately, if they can fix the issues, then Parker Fleming can keep his job. But if they continue to have those issues, especially in big games, Ryan Day is not going to keep him here. There's no way. You cannot allow like turnover worthy major field position issues in big games like the Michigan game that they have looming. So we'll see how that plays out. If Ohio State special teams plays well in that Michigan game, that's a huge benefit for Ohio State because it's one of the areas that Michigan can probably exploit them. That was it for Parker Fleming. Like I said, he answered a lot of the questions with kind of just coach talk, like, "Hey, we know we got to do better at that." And then Ryan Day also met with the media. The thing about Ryan Day right now that I love is he seems super relaxed. The way that Ryan Day is now is different than he has been the last 2 years. I I don't know. I haven't given you guys an update on the Michigan cheating stuff recently because there's not really an update to be had. Obviously, Harbaugh didn't coach um, this past weekend against Penn State. He's allowed to coach during the week. As of now, he's not. He's on a 3-game suspension for the remainder of the year. But they have a hearing on Friday, from what I'm hearing, to whatever legal action. I'm not even going to try to get into it like I know what it's called, but some kind of restraining order or something that they can file to make it where Harbaugh will be able to finish out the year. Honestly, I hope that it gets approved. I hope that he's able to finish out the year because I want Harbaugh to be coaching against Ohio State. I mean, if you're someone who just respects that game enough, you want there to be no excuses. You want everything to be right. And obviously, Michigan hasn't been respecting that game the last few years, so it is what it is. I'm going to be happy regardless if we win. But let me spin this back to what I was originally talking about. I kind of went on a little tangent there, but Ryan Day to me just seems like he is in a good mood, and when I say that, I mean like he is chill. He's locked in. I don't think that his head is anywhere other than like how good can I make this football team. So I'm loving that from him. I think the last couple years he's been a little tight and a little just. I mean, obviously losing that game and kind of having that looming over your head is something that if you're the coach for Ohio State, that's going to be hard to deal with. But at the same time, I think that maybe Ryan Day has some new life now with this whole cheating bullshit coming out. I think that he probably knew that they were doing something, and I think that he didn't know what it was. Obviously, I mean, how would he know? He wouldn't know exactly what they were doing, right? So if you know that someone like, man, they're picking our signs every single time we play them, but I don't know how, and then ultimately you find out this is how, that's got to bring some relief to you and be like, okay, look, I'm not just crazy. I didn't just suck in these games. Obviously, he wasn't at his best, but at the same time, like, it's tough when a team is able to perfectly counter everything you're doing. Adjustments are tough because as soon as you make an adjustment, they make an adjustment based off of your adjustment. So I don't know. Anyway, Ryan Day looks super loose. I think that he's locked in, and I think that he's about to finish this year out strong. A lot of times when Ohio State plays the game right before Michigan, they don't look locked in. They kind of lackadaisical. Almost lost to Maryland one time last year. Tough game with Maryland right before the Michigan game. I don't think that's going to be the case this time. I think this team is locked in. They know they have so many things to work on that they're using this game to get better. And the only way that you can get better is by going out here and putting up your best your best effort, your best game plan. Just go out here and take care of business and get out of there healthy. So um, the other coach that spoke with the media, like I said before, was Brian Hartline. Um, I like when Hartline talks to the media because he's like the most straightforward dude that I've ever seen when he's talking to them, and he doesn't give them any details. But if he's not going to give them any details, he doesn't try to beat around the bush. He's just like, I'm not telling you that. Yeah, I'm not saying that. Just I love the way he speaks. And then also like if they ask him a question that is like a dumb question, it pisses him off, and you could tell it pisses him off. Like I said, he's funny meeting with the media. I think that Brian Hartline has actually came a long way in terms of his offensive coordinator role. A lot of people just assume that they put him there for the title. Obviously, I think that was the case originally, but he's also the type of person, from what I can see, that he wants to excel at anything that he's doing. And so I think that he's really taken a step forward in like his knowledge of the entire offense. And you can see that when he's talking to the media. I don't know if he's having too much of an impact on the game plan. I do know that the game plan for Ohio State over the last like 3 or 4 weeks has been like a complete 180 from what it's been all year. It felt like all year they were kind of relying on just trying to rely on their talent, and now it seems like they're like, okay, look, we need to put our talent in better positions, and you're seeing a lot more of that with the gap run scheme, the misdirection in the run game where they're doing like end arounds and reverses and stuff like that. Again, all that stuff is just ultimately going to help your run game, as that defense can't just key on what you're doing. So, they have a ton of work with run and stretch, because that was like their main play. That was the thing that they were doing the most. So they're pretty good at that, right? Although it's not good when you're only doing that. And now they're mixing in a lot of those gap schemes, those counters. And honestly, I think that the person getting the most benefit from that, well, the one person and then the unit. So Travion Henderson's getting a ton of benefit from that, because he is like he's a gap run scheme running back. Have always said that. I think that he's not the type of guy who's going to go slow to the outside, like on a stretch play. Go kind of slow, be patient to the outside, and then find a hole. I think he's the running back that needs to get up to the line, jump cut, and go. And when he does that, he hits that jump cut or he hits that hole. And I mean, he's such a dynamic athlete that at any time he could take it to the house. People have always felt like that with Travion Henderson. He could take it to the house, but he wasn't great at like the short run plays. And he's elevated his game so much in that area where if someone does miss a block, he'll make that guy miss in the backfield and get you 3 yards still, get you 5 yards still, or maybe you make that guy miss, and if he finds a hole, take it to the house. So loving what I'm seeing out of that, and the obviously the unit, the offensive line. I think that running some of that gap scheme stuff has helped them too, because it lets them move around a little bit. It lets the defenders are not keying on exactly what they're doing and trying to counter it. Now, again, what I was saying, ultimately leading this back to, is I don't know if Hartline has had an impact on that portion of the offense. I think a lot of that probably has to do with Josh. Wait, yeah, Justin Fry. There we go. I think a lot of that has to do with Justin Fry, because that's something that he was known for prior to coming to Ohio State, was that kind of run scheme. So I don't know. Like I said, the coaches seem super loose though, um, except Hartline. But I mean, he's never like that. He just looks locked in all the time, and he's like, "We got to get better. We got to get better. We got to get better." So I don't know. Again, the coaches. Uh, to answer, I guess, the overall question that I asked when I tweeted this out is like, are the coaches locked in for a championship run? I do think that they are. I think that this coaching staff knows that this year is a very important year for Ohio State football, because of what happened the last 2 years in the game, what happened last year in the playoffs, going against the team that went on to win the national championship and just barely losing that game. And everything that transpired. I think that they're locked in. I think that they're ready to go out and kind of whoop Minnesota's ass. And then I can't wait to talk about the Michigan game, man. Man, I know I'm trying to hold off on it, on getting too much into it, because we have a whole week leading up to that, hate week, right? But I think that this coaching staff, especially with everything that's gone on with that whole cheating scandal, is really just ready to get their hands on Michigan. And I could see that game go going in a way how Ohio State games went, or Ohio State versus Michigan games went prior to 2021. Like, I caught myself going back and watching the 2019 game. Now, obviously, Ohio State team was different. Michigan's coaching staff was completely different. So, whatever, it is what it is. I think that um, even with those things being different, if you just go back and watch that game, Ohio State was scheming the fuck out of Michigan. And when I say scheming, I mean like Ryan Day had dudes running wide open. Obviously, that was Don Brown's defense. Michigan will say he's the worst coordinator. He had them as one of the best defenses every single year, and then just got beat by Ohio State. So I don't know. And then you look at their defense last year; they were really good all year, but TCU was able to score 51 points on them in the college football playoffs. So you can't tell me that that defense was just that much better than all those old defenses. I just really think that this coaching staff is going to scheme some shit up for them, and the offense is going to be able to score points. So let's use that to transition into the main topic of the show, which is that Ohio State offense. Right, the topic is this offense kind of hitting on all cylinders now? Is this offense ready to uh, be one of the best offenses in college football? Obviously, the stats are never going to be there for the entire season because they had a lot of low scoring games. Did not look good, didn't look great, honestly. But the question is, are they ready now to be clicking on all cylinders and become one of the best offenses in college football? So the first thing that's going to hinge on is going to be obviously Kyle McCord. Kyle has been inconsistent all year, which is weird because Ryan Day said that's one of his biggest strengths is being consistent. I mean, maybe he's been consistently not great. I guess you could say that because there's not really been great games and bad games. But if you watch the Michigan State game and you compare what Kyle McCord did, just specifically look at him. Don't look at any other position, any other player. If you're not looking at the defense, you're looking at Kyle McCord and what he did in that game. He took a step forward that I did not think that he was capable of taking. And the reason why I thought that is obviously because of how bad he's played throughout the year. And it always seemed like it was different issues. It was footwork, it was pocket awareness, it was accuracy, it was not having any like baller to him where he's moving around. It was decision making. All of those things came up as issues throughout the year. But he had none of those issues in the Michigan State game. And I got to give credit where credit is due because I've been hard on that kid all year, talking about how good he is, and maybe sometimes not giving him enough credit. But right now, I'm giving him his flowers. I'm giving him his credit. That kid is, I shouldn't say is, that kid played his best game against Michigan State. So if he's going to play his best football down or at this time in the year, that's perfect for Ohio State. That's the key thing to this offense really taking that next step like I'm talking about now. And when I'm looking at the Michigan State game, the biggest things that I see improved from Kyle McCord is his footwork, his accuracy, his timing, and honestly, he showed just that little tiny bit, gave me a glimmer of hope of like baller in him on that one play to Cade Stover. That one play where he stepped up in the pocket like he was supposed to. He hit a little juke move to get out of the pocket like he was supposed to. He extended the play just a little bit, and then he flipped the ball to Cade Stover, and he took it for a first down. That was a beautiful play because we haven't seen anything like that from him. And honestly, like if Kyle McCord was in, um, if Kyle McCord was in the Heisman conversation, which I don't know, maybe he should be because people were telling me JJ McCarthy should be, and Kyle McCord's stats are better than his. So, but anyway, if he was in the Heisman conversation, that play would be a show that they would play on the screen as they're talking about his stats. So, I mean, that plays like that, plays like the throw to Emeka at the end of the Notre Dame game. Those types of things would be playing if he was in a Heisman conversation. Obviously, he's not. I just talked about how he hasn't been very good all year, but it's just that little glimmer of hope that if something breaks down in the Michigan game, maybe Kyle McCord can give us a little bit of something. And then, so moving on from that, just like I said, Kyle has been very inconsistent, but the way that he threw the ball against Michigan State, if he can continue that level of play, I think the answer to my overall question of is this Ohio State offense ready to be one of the best in the country? The answer would be yes, right? If he plays like he did against Michigan State. Now, obviously, you do have to factor in defenses. You do have to factor all of that stuff in. But at the same time, he sh- they were not just playing against the air. Like the one touchdown that he threw to Marvin Harrison Jr., the the second one. I mean, is there a DB in college football that's defending that? I don't think there is. Um, Will Johnson at Michigan. I mean, how could he defend that? I mean, maybe if he was in front of Marv or something, I don't know. But I just, if Kyle can do things like that, we are going to be good. The next thing I want to talk about with this offense is the run game. So I was talking before about how they implemented some of these gap scheme runs, and it's tremendously helped the run game. That it has to continue getting better, not just continue. Um, not it can't even stop where it is right now. It has to continue getting better, and I think that it will, honestly, because I think that with TreVeyon Henderson, he is that type of running back where if you give him enough carries, he is going to get his yards, his touchdowns. I've always said TreVeyon Henderson's worth at least 7 points in a game. Having him on the field is worth at least 7 points. And you look back at like the Penn State game, TreVeyon Henderson did not play. Okay, in my mind, TreVeyon Henderson's worth 7 points. If that game was 27-6 at the late in the game before Penn State scored their touchdown, everyone's talking about that game differently, like how much of a blowout that it was. Again, just having him on this team, it just the impact cannot even be stated. I don't think, because I just think that he's one of the best running backs in college football right now. At least that's the level he's playing. And when Ohio State typically goes on these like championship runs late in the year, you typically see a running back start having really good games, and you see Ohio State start to lean on that run game. You look back at Ezekiel Elliott. You look back at J.K. Dobbins in 2019. You look back at Trey Sermon in 2020. Late in the year, they lean on that run game. So hopefully they continue to do that. Get Trey his touches, get him the ball in the passing game, because honestly, he's probably, as of right now, until Emeka is back to 100%, TreVeyon Henderson's your second best player on your offense. He may be better than Emeka, but I think people are kind of forgetting how good Emeka Egbuka was. I've been seeing him kind of get some slander, and I hate that from our fan base because he's injured right now. But when Emeka is healthy, Emeka is one of the best receivers in college football, and that's just how it is. Especially in big games. You look at the Notre Dame game. You look back to even the Michigan game last year, the Georgia game last year. Emeka always comes up in big games, so hopefully he'll be healthy come the Michigan game, and then it'll kind of be a toss-up, I think, between who is the second best player on the offense at that point between TreVeyon Henderson and Emeka. Obviously, number one's Marv. All right, and then so that's it for the run game. I was just again, it's super important that Ohio State brings their run game for the rest of this season because typically in the Michigan game, I mean, the stats say that the team that runs for more yards wins the game. That's just kind of how it's always been. Um, that's what we need to do. We need to go into Ann Arbor and we need to bring our defense and we need to run the ball and put Kyle McCord in good positions. Because if we put him in a position where he has to win the game by throwing the ball, I don't think that's the best option for Ohio State to win. So, all right, moving on from that. Uh, One of the things I wanted to talk about is what is something extra or what is the next step that Ohio State can take with this offense that could really take it like kind of over the top. So I talked about the quarterback. I talked about the run game. Now I want to talk about the quarterback run game because don't take this in the wrong way, because when we had CJ Stroud here, all of us were mad because CJ Stroud would not run the ball when it was 3rd down and 5 and nothing was open. I don't necessarily think that that's a problem for Kyle. I think that Kyle will run the ball 3rd down and 5, whatever. Like if he sees an opening, he's going to go get the first down. Excuse me. And that's what I like that about him. He's, like I said, he's not really that baller type who's going to make big plays like that too often, but we've seen him do it a couple times. I want to see them implement a little bit more quarterback run game in this Minnesota game. And when I say that, I mean like Obviously, do the quarterback sneaks when it's like inches or whatever. Implement some of that. Let Kyle keep it once or twice a game on a read. Why would we not do that? What like obviously you don't want your quarterback to get hurt, but if you do that once or twice a game, that can impact a single defender on the defense for the entire game. If you go into the Michigan game and you're coming off of a game where Kyle McCord kept the ball 3 times and got a first down 2 of those times, and maybe got a 15-yard run on one of them because nobody was paying attention to him. Now Michigan has to account for that. They cannot let that, if it's 3rd down and 2, they cannot slant their entire defense towards where they expect the run play to go. They have to account for the quarterback in that situation. So I think that's the next step. I want Kyle to continue playing good in terms of like his footwork and all that good stuff. But hopefully Ryan Day will implement just a little bit of quarterback run just to keep the defense on their toes. I think that's an important part of college football, because if you can cancel out one defender and equate the numbers a little bit, it's huge. And honestly, if you can do that, that gives TreVeyon Henderson one less person to worry about, and that could really end up setting him up for a day where he could go for like 200 plus yards against Michigan. And I know that's a crazy stat, but I could see it. If they give him 25 carries, I'm calling it right now. If TreVeyon Henderson gets 25 carries, he will go for 200 plus yards. If he gets less carries, then obviously we'll be talking about why and what happened. But if they lean on the run game, give him the ball 25 times, I think he goes for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. That'll be one of my bold predictions that I'll do when I talk tomorrow on tomorrow's show. All right, and then the last thing I want to talk about with this Ohio State offense is what is there? Is there a surprise player maybe that will make an impact on this offense going down the road? So you have your starters. Everybody knows who they are, what to expect from them. But my question for you guys in the chat, and also the question I'm going to talk about here in a minute, is there a surprise player who we either haven't seen a lot of or who we haven't seen any of that can make an impact on this offense going forward? And I'm thinking back to guys like Garrett Wilson his freshman year against Michigan. He got some run, but I mean, he was not a super big impactful player until that game. Chris Olave, his freshman year against Michigan, again, got some run, but was never a super big impact on the offense. So is that player on this team this year? Is there someone who hasn't made a big impact so far on offense, but we could see them ultimately having a huge impact in the Michigan game and into the playoffs? I'll tell you what, we'll do that for offense and for defense. We'll kind of do this as a little different segment because that's an interesting question to me. Something I need to put a little bit of thought into. I'm kind of thinking about it now. I think the obvious one for offense is probably Carnell Tate, right? I mean, he's had some impact, and he seems like he's getting a couple catches per game. And when he's targeted, good things seem to happen, right? So Carnell Tate's got to be the first option in this. But I'm gonna go a little less obvious, and I'm gonna go with someone who people. I don't know if I believe this or not, but I want to believe it. So I think this may be a little fantasy, but if it happens, I think that it will have a big impact. I think that Dallin Hayden could come in and be a 1-2 punch with TreVeyon Henderson in the Michigan game and going forward. So the reason why I say that, Dallin Hayden's Ryan Day's been adamant that they're redshirting him, which I get it. That's fine. They're going to redshirt him, whatever. I mean, it doesn't make sense because I feel like Dallin Hayden's not going to be here be a fifth-year senior at any point, but they're going to redshirt him, right? I think that if they can get him out there as a 1-2 punch with TreVeyon Henderson, because he's only played 2 games, so he has 2 more. If they can get him out there as a 1-2 punch with TreVeyon Henderson, I think that is probably the best run game combination that Ohio State can have right now. Now, I don't want to seem disrespectful to Chip Trayanum because Chip Trayanum's been doing everything that Ohio State asks of him, and he's a phenomenal blocker. Still get him out there and get him his touches. But if Dallin Hayden does get on the field, he has that running style that could really be a problem for a team like Michigan. because he's quick to hit the hole, and he just goes kind of forward. He's not one of them guys who's going to move side to side and let you get like a tackle for loss. Like he's more of that. I'm just going downhill, and then once he gets in space, he can make a guy miss. So I'm going to go with Dallin Hayden as my potential. What? How should I say it? My potential pop up player. My potential surprise. There we go. Surprise impact player on the offense going into the Michigan game and going forward. And my dude Evan, let's see, let's read this off. So Evan says on defense you got Malik Hartford, Hero Kanu due to injuries. Yeah, I could easily see those two guys um, being impact players on defense, and neither one of them have been in the game a ton this year. So I mean, obviously they've gotten some reps. So I think that the one I would probably pick out of the two is Hero Kanu. And I think that's the one I'm going to pick, Evan. I'm going to steal your answer. I think Hero Kanu will be the surprise player that has a huge impact on the Michigan game and going forward. Shout out anytime Hero Kanu is brought up. I feel the need to shout out my dude Cam Truther at Best Damn Media because he has been tooting the Hero Kanu horn since before the season started. And then it's like every time I see that kid in the game, he's out there making plays. He's out there throwing somebody around, ragdolling someone. And I think someone with his body size, we're going to need against Michigan because they like to do those heavy sets every now and then. And if you let them stay in that heavy set and run the ball on you, they will do it. They're not going to change just because they want to get some better athletes on the field. Michigan will run that heavy set the entire game if you let them do it. A guy like Hero Kanu will be big, big, big time on kind of not letting that heavy set offense of theirs get going and get traction because he's that big body who can get in there, muck things up, and I mean, like I said, he's just a playmaker, man. So I think if we put the right group of defensive linemen out there, I don't think that heavy set offense that they run is going to really work on Ohio State. I think that our linebackers are really good at shooting gaps this year. They haven't been the best at like kind of reading and reacting to plays, but I think that if you get that heavy set out there and they don't have too much to worry about behind them, Jim Knowles will have them playing super aggressive, and that will mess up that entire running scheme for Michigan. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Those are my two. Again, on offense, Dallin Hayden. The obvious answer is Carnell Tate. I hope to see him play more because I think Julian's not very healthy, and he's honestly not playing his best football. But offense, I have Dallin Hayden, Carnell Tate, and then defense, I'm gonna give another one. I have Hero Kanu, and like, all right, let me bounce off of what Evan said here because Evan said that Malik Hartford. I actually don't think that Malik Hartford is going to be or have a huge impact on the season going forward. And I hate to say that because I do think that he's been playing pretty well. He may get in on like some passing down situations if maybe they want to pull Sonny off the field, which I hope they don't do that, but because I think Sonny needs to be on the field at all times. But I don't think Malik Hartford's going to have as big of an impact as people think because he only started last game because Josh Proctor was out. Like in theory, Ohio State's defense most of the time, right? Unless they're gonna Michigan's running like a heavy package, I don't know what they're gonna do then. But in theory, you're gonna have your 4 down linemen. You're gonna have Tommy Steele / Cody mixing in there. You're gonna have your corners Denzel, Iggy, your slot Jordan Hancock, and then your safeties are gonna be Sonny Styles and Josh Proctor. So I don't think that Hartford is gonna see a ton of playing time because of that unless somebody were to get hurt or if they want to put him in on, like I said, some passing downs because he does have some of that like ball hawk to him. Jim Knowles actually met with the media and was talking about that. He was asked about Malik Hartford, and he said, he's like, if you remember being a parent and when your kids were younger, and one of the first things you teach them is to catch the ball, and he's like, when we're in practice and teams are trying to or when we're in practice going against the offense, he catches the ball. So he's saying that he gets interceptions. He's kind of a ball hawk. So maybe we'll see him in a role like that. But other than that, I don't think he'll see a ton of playing time. So we'll see. If I'm going to go on defense and go with my second player, I'm going to go with Kenyatta Jackson. I know he's got a lot of smoke this year, got a lot of a run, but Kenyatta Jackson hasn't had that game where he's kind of broke out, and I think that he's that type of player where he could have that breakout game against Michigan and maybe come up with like 2 sacks, something like that, maybe a deflected pass. Um, we'll see, man. I'm super excited for that game. Obviously, we're overlooking the Minnesota game a little bit, but I think that's just kind of the game where we get to look and see, like, okay, is everything in order? Are we ready to go into this Michigan game and take care of business? Because I'm not really like a lot of the other fans. I think a lot of Ohio State fans this year are like scared of this Michigan game, but I'm not. And the reason for that, I just think that the cheating that they did, I think that it had a big impact on the game. Like, as an Ohio State fan, what's one of our major advantages in any game? One of our major advantages in any game is we have one of the best offensive minds in college football on our sideline. Ryan Day is one of the best offensive line also, excuse me, one of the best offensive minds in college football, and that is just a fact. There's no arguing that. We like to complain about play calling when the execution and stuff is off, but the bottom line is Ryan Day is one of the best offensive minds in college football. Well, if you're Michigan and you're cheating and you know all of their play calls, what are you taking out of the game? Okay, but the players still have to make plays. Okay, but the fucking coaches don't have to coach. The coaches don't have to outcoach the other coaches. Is that not a big impact on games? Like, if you're not going to say that's not, if you're going to say that's not a big impact on games, then we're just going to act like it doesn't matter who your offensive coordinator, who your defensive coordinator, none of that stuff even matters. Just put the kids out there on the field and let them make plays. That's all you need to do, right? Like, no. Some coaches are better than coaches or than other coaches. Ryan Day spent his whole life, or obviously whatever, however much time of his life, becoming one of the best fucking offensive minds in college football. And Michigan took that advantage away by cheating. Maybe their defensive coordinators are really good. Maybe they can go toe to toe with Ryan Day. What they can't do is kick Ryan Day's ass like they did the last 2 years. And nobody could tell me any different. I think Ohio State's going to whoop Michigan's ass this year for that reason alone. I think that the players are good enough to execute, and Ryan Day is about to get in Ryan Day's bags that he's never gotten into in this game. All right. Anyway, that's it for my show today, guys. I'm obviously hit the like button, the subscribe button, all that good stuff. But I'll be alive again tomorrow. It should be about 10 a.m. I know I was a little bit late today, but I'm just trying to get back in the swing of some things. But thanks for coming, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Also, go if you haven't already, go follow me on Twitter, CFB_stop. Post a lot of like stat stuff on there. You might see me on there talking a little shit to some Michigan fans. But it is what it is. Peace out, guys. You guys have a good day.